eyes are on internet giant Google amid a wave of antitrust cases by U.S. and EU regulators. Officials are targeting Google's dominance in the internet sphere, claiming that the giant uses its power and influence to benefit itself and its business partners. In fact, in a major development, European Union regulators have charged Google with fresh antitrust violations, demanding that the tech giant sell off parts of its profitable digital ads business. Now, this marks the first time that the EU has called for a tech giant's business breakup over antitrust issues. Now, meanwhile, in the biggest antitrust case in a quarter century, the U.S. government argues that Google rigs the market by locking in its search engine as the default choice. This comes as concerns are mounting around the development and rapid growth of artificial intelligence, with the rise of ChatGPT and virtual assistants that have found their way into multiple sectors, from education to the medical field. Well, joining us now to discuss the Google antitrust cases, artificial intelligence, and the dangers of monopolies is Brendan Caldwell, Director of Caldwell Securities Limited. Brendan, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Thank you, Nima. Yes, monopoly can be very dangerous. Your opponent gets Park Place and Boardwalk, you're finished.
Definitely. Now, before we get into monopolies, Brendan, let's talk a little bit about these antitrust cases involving Google. So what are your major takeaways from the proceedings that we're seeing both in the U.S. and the EU?
Well, there's a brilliant tech entrepreneur I know named Jason Smith. He founded a company called Real Matters. And he has a wonderful expression. You can be right, but you can be dead right. So when you become a certain level of powerful, there are things you can do. You can pay, for example, Apple billions of dollars to be the default search engine on their phones. You can do that. There's nothing inherently illegal about doing that. But to the extent that the industry has beaten all its competition, is now so dominant that you can buy, I won't say bribe, buy your position. You can use different levers that are unavailable to your competitors. And if you choose to use those levers, you do set yourself up for a power greater than yourself, that is the government, to come in and say, hold on here, you're being anti-competitive. So I'm not going to say yes or no. Google is my default search engine, but to the extent that a company that used to have the motto, don't be evil, sort of dropped that a while ago. I harken back to Jason Smith. You can be right, but you can be dead right.
All right, Brendan. Now, we touched a little bit on monopolies. Can you tell us a little bit more about your concerns around them, and what are the dangers of large monopolies like Google?
Well, it's not even just Google. I mean, the idea of monopolies really started a little bit of history lesson with Teddy Roosevelt taking on Standard Oil and the railroads. And in America, they had built the oil companies and the railroads into these big dominant players, and that was leading to an uncompetitive situation for consumers. I mean, that's historically been the concern, that if you control all the railways or all the oil, and people can only buy from you because you've won, then you can charge whatever you'd like. And if it's a service that people have to have, and one could fairly argue that an internet search is a service that people have to have, then you have an unfair advantage over the public. And you may have won by the rules, you may have got to your monopoly by the rules, but getting to that sort of dominant position to the detriment of consumers is what governments have typically stepped in. And it's been in technology. You've seen it at the AT&T in the early 1980s, with Microsoft in the early 2000s, and now with Google. The funny thing is governments are often late to the party. Because as you pointed out, there's this whole artificial intelligence thing. It might be that in as quick as a year or two, Google's whole way of doing searches that we're used to over the last couple of decades may become a thing of the past.
All right, Brendan, just a quick 30 seconds left here in the segment, but are there any monopolies in Canada that you may be concerned about?
We do it a little differently because our market is so small. We don't do monopolies. We do oligopolies, where we have a consortium of, you pick them, railroads, airlines, telephone companies, banks especially, where it gives the impression of competition, but because there are just a few large players, grocery stores are particularly in the news, Metro and Loblaws, and you can end up with situations like the grocery stores fixing the price of bread, which you don't get much more twirly mustached evil than that. So oligopolies are in a little bit way, it'll in some ways worse because they give the impression of competition, but they can have the same effect in a conspiracy against the public, against the consumer.
All right, lots of food for thought there, Brendan. Thank you again for your time today on Forum Daily.
Thank you, Nima.